I had a question recently about the thumb, right hand thumb. Someone asked about anchoring the thumb. And so what that means is when you're playing with the right hand, do you keep your thumb up in the air waiting to pluck the next string, or do you actually keep it resting on a string? And for me, as much as possible, I like to keep, and I think I've spoken about this in another video, I can't remember which one, but I do like to keep my thumb anchored onto a bass string, usually the 6th string. So even if I'm playing a scale just with my fingers, I'm going to keep my thumb anchored on the 6th string. So you'll see as I play through the scales today, you'll see that my thumb is always anchored. I find it helps to stabilize the hand, gives a point of reference and a point of contact, an extra point of contact with the guitar, right? So if you know, I've talked about this before, we have points of contact with the guitar. We've got the guitar on our leg, or if you've got a rest, the guitar rest onto your left leg. You've got the guitar on the lower bout here onto your right leg. That's 2 contact points. You've got a 3rd contact point with your chest. You have a 4th contact point with your arm. Those are the main 4 contact points. Then we have like secondary contact points. One is the thumb. Another one are the fingers that we place on the fretboard. So those are contact points, right? If we have fingers down on the fretboard, those are they're in contact with the instrument. And then we have our thumb. So we have 4 main ones, and then secondary 5, 6, 7, and then maybe an 8th one if we're planting with the right hand. Okay, so those are something to do with contact points there. So this adds an extra contact point. I think the more contact points, the more secure, the more stable you'll feel with the instrument. You want to make sure your instrument is stable, right? If you let your hands off the instrument, is it wobbling around? Like if it's wobbling, like if you move and it's wobbling around, that's not ideal. You want it to be stable. And stability can come in various forms. It can be general stability of the guitar. It can also be stability on the more micro scale. So macro scale, sort of stability of the whole instrument. We've also got micro scale stability, like the right hand. Planting the thumb with the right hand can help the stability of the right hand. The thumb's contact with the neck here, that can add stability. Contact with the fingers on the fretboard can add stability too. So that's why when I play a scale, I'm trying to increase the number of contact points as much as possible. For example, if I play, I should change camera angle here so you can see me a bit more. Let me see here. Is it this one? Nope. That one. There we go. The sound should be back. Thanks for telling me. Thanks, Giuseppe. Thanks, Giuseppe. So let me talk through that again, because you're just watching me, without sound. So what I was saying is, if I play a C major scale, I'm keeping extra contact points down. See, my thumb is down here on the right hand, If I play C to D, 2 to 4, fingers 2 to 4, I've still got 2 to 4, right? They're down. So I've got 3 extra contact points with my fingers, right? This one is a default one. We should always, most of the time, the thumb's going to be on. The contact points we tend to not think about are the fingers themselves, right? And that's where planting adds another contact point. So when I switch strings, I add a contact point there. You see that? My index finger is on the 4th string, like that. So it's so many contact points right now. I'm in contact with the instrument, with my fingers, with my hands, as well as, you know, with my body too, right? And then I'm going to go these 3. I'll prepare my right hand finger, my M finger. I've still got my thumb planted on the 6th string. So this question about the thumb as an anchor, it kind of comes back to a deeper topic of contact points, right? So I'm increasing the contact points. So I played E, F, G on the 4th string, 1, 2, 4. They're still all down. And when I descend, it's going to be even more important. So now I'm going back to the 3rd string, so I can't plant, but now I can plant. So you see that? And then plant. So I've still got the thumb on the 6th string. Some people like to bring the thumb across. I don't like to do that because for me that adds another movement. And actually the person who asked this question did raise this issue. He said that planting the thumb can become overcomplicated. You know, you're adding another movement to the sequence, but that's why I like to just keep it fixed on one string when I'm playing a scale. So plant to the left hand's all fixed. Now descending is even more important because all I have to do for the left hand, I just have to lift the fingers off. What I'm doing is I'm actually pre-loading or pre-planting or preparing the fingers that I need. So on the way down here, 4, 3, 1. I lift 4, 3's there already. I lift 3, 1's there already. And then I go across, I plant with my right hand. So that's a contact point ready on the 2nd string because I'm about to play the 2nd string. I've got my 4th finger ready, and then I'm going to plant 4, 2, 1. 4, 2, 1. Lift 4, lift 2, 1. And then 3, 1. Lift 3 to get to 1. And then I'll shift with 3 and 1. 3 and 1 are down, 3, 1. And then across, plant. It's quite, talking it out is quite complex, but basically what I'm doing is I'm adding as many contact points as possible and I'm anticipating my movements as much as possible. 4, 2, 1, lift 4, there's 2, lift 2, there's 1, right? I can play with my eyes closed, right? Because my fingers are already there. I don't have to look. If I play like this, I'll be lucky to get those notes right. I'm still getting it because my fingers are still relatively close, and they're trained to just, see how they're lined up with the frets. They're kind of trained that way. But I feel much more security if they're actually planted down. Right, so there's the answer. My answer there for planting the thumb on the 6th string, for scale playing, similar for arpeggio playing. So if I do something like Villa Lobos Etude 1, I'll often see that. That's what the thumb's doing there. So going back to the 6th string, it's like a magnet. It's like gravity. Gravity just pulls it back to the 6th string to rest, to anchor. And sometimes, yes, that will increase the number of movements that the thumb has to make, but for me, it's in favor of it outweighs for me the positives by moving the thumb back. The positives being the extra contact point, the extra stability of the hand. So it's like a second nature. It's just My thumb just wants to go there, see? Even if I play... See how much the thumb, even when I'm using the thumb, when the thumb's not needed for a little while, it'll just back, blip, it'll just go, blip back to that 6th string. And then when it's needed again, it'll just move to the string it needs to play, and then back to the 6th. Just an anchor. It's an anchor for the hand. Helps to keep it stable. I mean, you'll still see me. One of my bad habits is that my right hand does tend to move a little bit, especially if I'm performing and a little bit nervous, a bit excited, or I haven't done a good technical workout for my right hand. It can too much movement. You should minimize your error. Your error percentage should just go way down if you've got these. If your fingers are already on the notes before you play them, your error percentage just goes way down. And this principle can apply to very advanced passages. It can apply to scales. It can apply to very simple pieces if you're more of a beginner. Very simple pieces can be made a lot easier. I can't think of any simple, like, I don't know, Spanish Romance or something. Right? Let's take this. Right? So one thing. Look what my thumb's doing there. Right? It's planting onto the 5th string, anchor. Look at my left hand. I have my second finger already on the A. Right? It's not like this. Right? This is very common. You see this kind of thing. Right? And then it's like, got to get to the A, and it's easy to miss. But if you have the, and then 2 and 1, and then in addition to that, I'm also doing sequential planting for the arpeggio. So I've got the thumb is resting there, and then the fingers are sequentially planting onto the next string. So if I play it slow. There, so second finger's ready for the D. Lift 4. So now this is all ready to go. And then here. That's tricky. In this case, I can't, because I'm playing all of these notes on the same string, I can't always plant them. So if you can't actually put your fingers down, the next best step is to keep your fingers close. So that's what I'm trying to do here. What's the best angle? Whoopsie. I just tripped a little wire there with my footstool. So, what was I saying? So the next best step, the next best thing, lucky I've got this, what do you call it? Rotating chair, So the next best thing, if you can't put your fingers down, is to keep them close. I wish I could get a bit close to show you. So when I do something like, so I'm trying to keep the 3rd finger close. It just goes down a little bit, and then the 4th finger, when I need to stretch it, I'll stretch it. I want to keep it relaxed here. I don't want it to stretch now because it's very tense if I do that. So 3rd finger a little bit, and then it stretches out, ready for the D sharp a little bit early. And then I'll go back to the 3rd finger, ready, lift the 3rd finger. And then I'll get the 4th finger ready, 4 and 2 ready, 2, slide, 2 and 1. and then I'll get this whole chord ready, which for some people will sound very obvious, but for others, not always obvious. It's called, I call it chunking. And then we can hold 2 down and we can get the whole chord ready. So there's no lifting necessary. All fingers are down. This slides up and slides back, right? And then as little movement as possible, chunking the chord. What I want to do here is I don't want to, with the right arm, it's easy to do something like that where the arm will lift off. You're taking off one of the 4 core contact points that you have with the instrument. As soon as you lift that arm off, the guitar is very unstable. So as much as possible, you want to try and keep your arm fixed. If you need to adjust, just rotate from, like, pivot from that point. Whatever it is, like if you need to play, if you need to change colors, keep the arm on. If you need to adjust for the thumb, keep the arm on. If you need to play artificial harmonics, slide the arm. Don't lift. Slide the arm so you're keeping the contact point. Like this kind of thing. So I'm sliding, I'm not lifting, because that takes off a very crucial contact point. Okay, so I hope that answers the question about the thumb. It's kind of interesting how that, really went to a deeper sort of principle, I think, there. Anyway, I want to go through a few. So another question was by the same person: what scale collections do I use? And I answered with a few options. So I want to go through a few of those. I want to show you those. And I have to say that for me, scales are my favorite warm-up. If I only had one option of something to warm up with, it would be scales. That for me just gets the hands coordinated and feeling good. So I am expecting a phone call. Oh, this is the phone call. I actually have to answer this phone call. So Okay, hello. Thanks for bearing with me. I know a few people probably left there. I was on the phone for a little bit. Yeah, so I'm actually doing some workshops here in Fort Myers, Florida, in the US summer, in probably going to be in June, most likely. I will, once this is all confirmed, this I was just on the phone there with the Alliance for the Arts in Fort Myers. So I'll be doing some workshops in June. Yeah, stay posted about that. So sorry to keep you waiting there while I was on the phone. Thanks for sticking around. If you did stick around for a bit, sorry to keep you waiting. So I was talking about scales, collections of scales that I use. I do have to wrap up pretty soon here, actually, unfortunately, because I do have students, to teach pretty soon. So one of the collections of scales that I use, especially with my students, I do use it for myself occasionally also, are scales by Johann Caspar Mertz from his method book. So I have published this. You can check it out in the link I've posted in the description. And I think that these are a great alternative to one of the other collections I recommend, which are Segovia's diatonic major and minor scales. They're great, but these are very different. They serve very different purposes, as I say here, right? So the Segovia scales are wonderful, great set of fingerings and purposes, but this is a great alternative. They're not as difficult. They're great for an intermediate standard. It's kind of, sometimes it can be a bit intimidating if you're an intermediate or like a late beginner, an intermediate player, and you're looking for some scales to play, and you come to Segovia scales and it's like, whoa, this is like such high position, so many octaves, such like the fingerings are not always the most natural or idiomatic or comfortable even. They do serve specific purposes though, Segovias. They're great. I would say Segovia scales are great if you're like a late intermediate or an advanced player. I think Segovia scales are great. So what I'm saying here in my preface for the book, these are by Mertz. Johann Caspar Mertz is considered to be one of the great one of the top guitar composers. So I think we should take it seriously. Like, he wrote some scales, so let's look at them. Like, so what I say here: if such a legend of guitar history left behind a set of scales in his method book, why don't we practice them today? Doesn't seem to me to be common knowledge that Johann Caspar Mertz wrote scales. So, and I think largely, Segovia scales and other scale collections have overshadowed Mertz and other. There's a lot of 19th century material. So Mertz doesn't go over the whole circle of fifths. So he doesn't include keys like D flat major or G sharp minor, for example. They don't traverse as many octaves, so there could be a good preliminary study to Segovia's more advanced scales. Mertz also presents his scales in what I call a burst rhythm, which is this. Ta, ti, 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 ta, ti, 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 ta, like that, okay? So that's a bit different. Segovias are just written in crotchets or in quarter notes. So because of that, we could tend to play them like that. But yeah, so, and what else do I write? Mertz did indicate, Mertz also includes cadences, these little chord progressions at the end of each scale. It's really nice. So they're well worth practicing and provide contrast and variety to single note scales. So Segovia scales are just single note scales the whole time. Mertz has these beautiful little cadences here at the end of each. So you play the C major, and then a nice beautiful cadence at the end of each scale, and each cadence is a bit different. It's almost like a little piece, a little study. Really beautiful. So that sort of contrast from a single note texture to a chordal texture is great, because it's something that we see in pieces. So when we're playing pieces, textures might change from chordal to polyphonic to scalic, etc. So practicing this kind of change in texture can be a great technical exercise. You're playing scales and then chords. It's a very different experience, a different technique. It's nice to, I think, swap from one to the other, but they're still like kind of linked together by key. So, and then I talk about right hand fingerings. Mertz only provided one right hand fingering here, which is basically thumb and then index and middle the whole way. So I've kind of recommended you can use standard fingerings, which is basically what Segovia says, I, M, and the reverse, M, I, A, and the reverse, M, A, and the reverse. You could even try non-standard, which includes the thumb and the pinky. So yeah, so that's scales. I actually have some of the little quote from Segovia's preface from the scales there. It's just I guess a little tribute to Segovia. Even though I've published this book with Mertz's scales, I still admire Segovia's scales, and I myself practice Segovia's scales a lot. But I do enjoy these scales a lot. I do practice them from time to time, but with my students, I prefer to use these rather than the Segovia scales most of the time, especially if the student is not super advanced or if they haven't done scales before. So scales, here we go. So Mertz, let's go through. I'm gonna play these scales now. So I'm gonna use just standard fingerings, rest stroke. So I was gonna go through a few different collections of scales, but I'm not gonna have time to do that. So looks like it's just Mertz scales today. Okay, so I'm sorry if you were, on the edge of your seat to see Segovia and Mozzanni. I have done Mozzanni's already. I have done Segovia's already as well. If you look in the playlist, go to my YouTube channel. Please, if you don't mind subscribing, it'd be great if you subscribe so you get notified about these live streams and other videos I post up. So I did a podcast recently with Andrew York, and I really enjoyed that. And there'll be one coming up soon with the founder of Savvy Music Studio. We'll be talking about music business with Sarah Campbell. So that's going to be coming up very soon. So podcasts are out, and I uploaded Choros Number 1 by Villalobos, an old favorite. Let's do some scales by Mertz today, and then we'll have to wrap up pretty soon. So I'm setting the metronome here to 90. So what I like about these scales is they're quite natural. We have open strings, not much shifting. Generally, Mertz tries to limit the number of shifts we do, whereas Segovia tries to sometimes increase the number of shifts, a gradual way of shifting up and down the fretboard. But yeah, Mertz tends to do the opposite, and just you get one big, sometimes you'll just get one big shift and then back. It's kind of, in some ways it's simpler, but in other ways it's harder because you've got a larger shift. So I'm really aware of when I play faster like this, I get a tendency for the pinky to tense up, and you might see it a little bit. I'm using I can see, I'm monitoring myself here, the video, so I can see what's happening in the video. And I can kind of see and feel a bit of tensing up there with the pinky, so I want to get that nice and loose. With the cadence there, the scale, and then the cadence. I'll do A minor. I'm going to go to I and A. G major with M and A. So we're going around the circle of fifths like Segovia's does. and many others. E minor. I think I'm going to start using the pinky a little bit because I feel like my pinky's just going a bit wild. I want to tame it up a little bit. I'm going to use I, C, index and pinky. And I would recommend all guitar players, whatever level you're at, even if you're a complete beginner, to just use the pinky just a little bit. Use the pinky because it's a bit weird that we use these four so much and this one's completely neglected. And this one often causes so many problems. So just by simply using it a little bit, you get getting the neurons firing and, you know, getting a bit more control. It doesn't have to be, you know, used like in real playing, you know, just as a practice kind of method to improve the pinky. So I'm going to do I'm going to do C, I now, pinky index. Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. And then I'm going to do the cadence. Nice cadence. Beautiful. D major, I'm going to do maybe thumb. Get the thumb going. Thumb and index. Oops. Similar kind of thing here. We tend to, when we play scales, we tend to just focus on these three fingers, and it's like we neglect these outer fingers, the thumb or the thumb and the pinky. It feels really nice though to include those occasionally, even just a little bit. It feels really nice to include them. So I'm going to do the cadence. Beautiful cadences. Next is B minor. I might do thumb again. I'm going to do pinky. I'll go back to the pinky. M and pinky. M, pinky, M, C. See what I mean about very few shifts. We just have first position and then fourth and back to first. Mertz tends to shift on an open string, which is different to Segovia. I don't think Segovia has any very few open strings. So I think it's good to do both. You want to practice shifting with open strings and then practice shifting without open strings. All right, let me try that again. Pinky M, C M. Now the cadence. Okay, A major, I'm going to go back. I feel like getting the thumb going. P, M. Nice, just one little shift there. Yes, beautiful cadences. One thing that you want to think about when you're playing the chords is what I call a one-handed clap. So if I play those cadences again, right? One-handed clap, I want to move from the knuckle joints, a nice, firm, relaxed movement from the knuckle joint, and it generates a bit of power with minimum effort. And then, see what I'm doing there? The hand stays still, so there's little to no hand movement. The movement is coming from the knuckle joints there. It is nice. One-handed clap, yeah? Okay, we might have to just do one more scale. Last scale, I think, for today. F sharp minor, I'm going to use I and M. I'm going to crank up the tempo to 110. Just in the first position, there. Listen really carefully to your sound, because sound is often an indicator of tension. So if you start to hear, right, there's tension. If I stay relaxed, I can play fast, but it still has warmth. It doesn't sound brittle. Okay, so there's a little intro, a little peek into the scales of Johann Caspar Mertz. He doesn't go through all of the keys. He goes to about 3 flats or maybe 4 flats. Yeah, 4 flats, and that's it. There is a little appendix in the book as well about some ways I encourage you to practice scales, and myself and students, burst rhythms, scale bursts. You tend to find scale bursts. You tend to find scales in bursts when you're looking at them in pieces, rather than like a whole run of ascending and descending. So that's why practicing in bursts can be very relevant to pieces. And then there's a few suggestions for dynamics, with different dynamics and color, different types, amounts of crescendo and decrescendo, articulation, different emphasis, adding different accents to different fingers, changing the tone color, and a summary of that. So yeah, you can grab this book, you can check it out in the link in the description. There's also a link to some courses if you're interested in sight reading or composing. For the guitar, some courses you can check out in the link. So yeah, let me know if you've got questions. I do, as you saw at the start of this video, I answered a couple of questions from the same person. I do try to answer the questions if you ask them. So thanks for joining, thanks for watching, and yeah, there we go. Actually, the person who asked the question is in the chat, so pleasure. If you have any further questions, is my video not showing up this whole time, huh? What's going on? Oh no, I am here, am I? I'm just looking at my YouTube. Okay, yeah, I'm here. Okay. Anyway, thank you for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.